And this club spending millions of pounds who will never win a trophy.
No,
True.
Ever.
True.
unfortunately true.
We are recording. We are recording now, but I think we've still one or two to assemble.
Do you want to go into questions? Does everybody want to go into questions?
Yeah, might as well.
That went very fast because, otherwise you'll only have 5 or 6 minutes on questions, and I'm sure there's lots. And in those questions, I can expand a little bit if it goes into any of the other clubs.
Yeah. So everyone, can I just ask, if you want to ask a question, can you just put your hand up? Don't speak until I say lol or whoever. Is that okay?
Yeah, good.
Yeah. Right. Lol's first then.
Yeah. Now, over the years, Chris, goalkeepers have made incredible saves that supporters never forget. For example, 3 spring to mind. Gordon Banks from a Pele header, Mexico 1970. Jim Montgomery, double save in the 1973 Cup final against Leeds. And David Seaman from a Paul Pescatore header in the semi-final. At Old Trafford in 2003. Now, looking back over your playing career, have you a particular save that sticks in your mind as being your best?
Well, obviously, the save in the cup final was the most important save. It's a save that in training throughout the weeks that on the training ground, because there's lots of footwork and movement and change of direction that you probably make most weeks those sort of saves. For that to be taken into the biggest game of your life and of your career, pull that one out. That's an obvious answer. But what I'm going to throw back is we played at Goodison Park one day, Sheffield Wednesday, and it was a really cold, wet, speedy surface, and Graham Sharp struck a ball from just outside the box. It was a crowded scene, and the ball was hurtling, and I saw it leave his foot, and then I lost track of it. And then remember, these are milliseconds. I lost track of it, and then I just saw it before it went through past the last person, and I dived to my right, and I actually got hold of it with one hand. Now that was, I still remember that today as though it was yesterday. That because I was amazed that I actually saved it. That's one that sticks in my memory.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Who's next? Glenn, next.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for the last half hour. That was great. One thing that stands out for me, funnily enough, I have met you before. I'll briefly mention it, Play for Success conference with you and your mate Russ. I spent a very pleasurable evening, shall we say, and we'll draw a veil over it after that. Yeah. One thing that stands out for me throughout all of that, throughout your career, the importance of loyalty and community as well, whether it's the team you support or whether it's loyalty to your club or family or whatever. And I'm quite interested because I think you direct football now at Wakefield. I'm quite interested in how you're going to bring that ethos into your club at Wakefield, because I know you're probably not going the Salford City way, I don't think, by everybody throwing a lot of money in. So I'm just interested in that, really.
Well, I mean, the situation is that there was an academy that we had. It was playing pro clubs. The idea was to try and get younger players an opportunity in front of professional clubs. But as I was watching that develop, I'm thinking to myself, this ain't going to happen. So I spoke to the owner, and a quick one. I said that we need to be in the men's league. We need to be in the men's league and play men's football. So he suggested, why don't we start up Wakefield? Because he lived in the city. It's the biggest city in the UK that hasn't got a professional club. And cut a long story short, we have now going to play in the Wakefield Trinity Stadium, which was going to start, but obviously the lockdown kicked all that into touch. once the present season, whatever's going to happen with the rugby league, there's going to be a new stadium built on the existing land, and we're going to be the football club that plays in there. The ambition is to get to Conference North, possibly in the next 8 years, something like that. It'll be way beyond my time that it became a professional club, unless, as you say about Salford, there is big investment. There's a lot of people interested in investing in the club once we can get in and playing in the stadium. And there's a lot of people who follow football, love football, would like their own city team in Wakefield. So it's the early beginning. Hopefully in 10, and hopefully there's still a team in 20 years' time that has progressed up the ranks, Conference North, Northern Premier, National League, etc. That's the goal. That's the goal for us. Community-based, it's 300,000 people surrounding the city of Wakefield. I mean, I've got to be totally honest, I've never been to Wakefield in my life until I went up there. I just thought it as a rugby league town. The rugby league people have been absolutely marvellous with me and the owner. And, you know, who knows, it may take off. Hopefully it does.
Great. Thanks, Chris.
Pleasure.
Okay, Chris.
Yes.
I've actually met you before at Sheffield Wednesday's ground. When you were the manager, I helped run a local football league, and you did our Team of the Month.
Right.
So thank you again for doing that a long time ago. What was it like to manage Wednesday at that
time? What was it like? I mean, you know, I've said several times regarding playing decisions. I had a massive managerial decision because at Hartlepool, we were top of the 4th division, well, 3rd division then, by about 12, 14 points. I had accumulated over a 3.5-year period a tremendous squad of players. And, you know, in their managerial career, and I speak most managers, to stand on a touchline, knowing that your team is going to win, or you know, home or away, that your team can win this game, no danger, is a rarity, because you're either building a team or you're taking over a team that's losing every week. Lack of confidence, lack of quality, etc. And you've been brought in to try and change that around. And as statistics tell you, it's very rare does it does turn around. So I had a decision to make, and it's heart versus head. And my heart went, we're going to Sheffield Wednesday. Within 2 weeks, well, even less than that, I knew I left better players at Hartlepool than what I had at Sheffield Wednesday, who 2 leagues above, but down the bottom. And it was a pressure job, as it always is. And it disappointed me when I look back, because I had 14 months with other managers' players. I had to wheel and deal, get loans in, players out. One of the biggest disappointments is Grant Holt left us when he did, because Grant was brought to the club for development, not to be the number one striker. But when he came in, he was the best striker we had. He was playing better than any of the strikers when he came in. But he hit the buffers a little bit, which is to be expected. And he started to lose a bit of form, and that's when he needed to be left out. And he was only a youngish player at that time. But I knew he had the ability. And it was a disappointment to lose him. It was a disappointment to lose Sibon when we lost Sibon. I just got the team playing in a 4-3-3 system the season we went down, and I brought Johnson in, Sibon, Proudluck came in, I think that season, was it the next? But, you know, I was working and jostling around with players, and one particular, after 14 months, I had 16 players out of contract, and I released 15 players. Some of those players, you know, crowd liked them, but they weren't doing it for the club, or the club weren't going in the right direction with these players, and they were on too much money, and I had to get the wage bill down to £2.5 million. From it was running when I first went there, £8 million. A lot big difference today, but this is nearly 20 years ago. The disappointment was I had 4 months with my players that had been working hard, bringing them to the forefront, getting them to the club, getting them into pre-season. Won 3, drew 3, lost 3, got the sack, and then the final against my old club, Hartlepool. Great to see the team get promoted, but disappointing looking back that if I could have had 14 months with those players instead of 14 months with other players, who knows what the difference may have been. But I know we would have been better with that. But once again, as I said earlier, that's football.
Okay. Next, anyone?
Okay.
Chris.
Hi.
Oh, what's that in the background?
Sorry, it's my heart.
I know.
Chris, it's my heart.
I know.
Chris, we've never met before, and we're on opposite sides of the city. But I really have enjoyed your honest accounts. There, they are fascinating. Thank you for being on this conference. Thank you. What I want to ask you, Chris, if I may, is your time back at Man U. The goalkeeping coach, I understand at that time, was the great Alan Hodgkinson, and he was a very particular friend of mine and my family. And I just want to ask you, what was your sort of relationship with Alan? How much input did he give you as a person, as a player? What sort of things came out of being at a club with the great Alan? I'm really interested in your opinion. Thank you.
I had Alan came to Sheffield Wednesday as well when I first went back to Sheffield Wednesday. Alan was coaching there, and then he came to Manchester United. Fantastic fella. And in those days, goalkeeping coaches were just starting to come to the forefront with goalkeepers. I mean, when I went to Manchester United, Gary Bailey was constantly on to Ron Atkinson about bringing Gordon Banks in because there were no goalkeeping coaches. So, but Alan was a tremendous guy. Stayed in touch with him for a long time because I did my coaching badges at Manchester United, and Alan was on the course up in Largs. I was there for 3 years, so I used to speak consistently with Alan, and I worked with him at 2 clubs. And then, even when I went to Sheffield United game a few years ago, and Alan was one of the guests there, and had a good chat. And unfortunately, he died probably 6 to 8 months later. But a great guy, and you know, early on in my talk there, we're talking about size of goalkeepers. My hero was Ron Springer. And Alan Hodgkinson. They both played at the same time. Alan and Ron were probably 5'8", 5'9". You know, I was 5'10", but it's eras going on. Another 20 years. Like today, they're 6'5", 6'7". It just shows you the difference. Yeah. But Alan was a great guy.
Thank you, Chris, and good luck in your career from.
Thank you very much.
Wakefield.
Thank you.
Probably just answered John's question to you by mentioning that Ron Springett was your hero.
He's my hero, Chris. I grew up with Ron Springett, and I compare every goalkeeper we've had since to Ron Springett. Obviously, Ron Springett was good, but you were a very good goalkeeper yourself. It's hard, you know, growing up with Ron Springett, who was the best goalkeeper in the world, as I always say, until Gordon Banks grew up.
Yes.
Yeah, my hero. Definitely.
Well, I mean, when I was still at school, 14, 15, I used to train with Peter, and you know, we'd have shooting. So I was 14, 15 years of age, and I'm having Mick Prendergast and Brian Joyce and Stevie Downs, the strikers of that era. I was going back in the afternoon when I was in school holidays and training with Neil Ramsbottom, Peter Springer, people like that. But you know, Ron was my hero because I grew up through the 60s of watching Wednesday and obviously the cup final and this and that. But never met him. And in 1991, when we won the when we won the League Cup, after the game in one of the lounges, I met him for the first time in my life. And I had the cup with him, and we had the cup between me and Ron. Pictures in the house. Unbelievable day. Yeah, we won the cup final, but I met my hero that day, and I'll always remember it.
What a great picture that must be.
Yeah. Tremendous.
Right.
I mean, Peter, he had hard shoes to fill with Ron's career, but Peter was a most likable guy as well. Always remember, Peter, that probably the last time I saw him, we were looking for some paint, me and my wife, and we were told to go down to Shoreham Street. So we're going down Shoreham Street, around the back of the cop, and there's a shop or wherever she wanted to go into. So I said, I can't park here, it's yellow lines. I'll be 5 minutes. So I'm parked on yellow lines. And as I'm sitting there, I looked in my mirror, and about 5-10 yards behind me, would you believe it, there's a policeman. Could not believe it. Knocked on the window, winds it down. Who was it? Peter Springer, who I've seen for years and seen for a long time. And prior to that, I knew I'd been well, he'd had cancer, etc. But it was great to see him, and he got over that. And he was looking well. And in those days, he was travelling with the Sheffield United fans on away games, on trains and stuff like that to look after him. But unfortunately, that was the last time I saw him. But he was a great guy, Peter. And to be fair, he and other goalkeepers around that time gave me a lot of good advice.
Okay, next, anyone? Well, Paul.
Chris.
Biscuit, by the way. Chris.
I've just had one.
Name's not just Paul, it's Paul the Biscuit.
Paul the Biscuit, right.
Yeah.
Well, he can eat as many biscuits as he wants. I've seen him. He's a fit guy.
It's the biscuit. It's the biscuits that keep me going.
Yeah.
No, I wanted to ask Chris. I mean, you've worked with two very contrasting managers in Ron Atkinson, who was very charismatic sort of guy, and then with Sir Alex Ferguson, who arguably is the greatest manager of all time. But such different kind of styles. I just wonder which you prefer to work with. Do you prefer to work with the personality, or do you prefer to work with the guy who's going to get the results?
Well, I think that Ron was a player's manager. He wasn't neither was Sir Alex, to be fair, a coach on the training ground, organising players, doing formations, doing set plays. Ron never did that. He left all that to Richie Barker. And at Manchester United, a coach called Archie Knox did all that for Sir Alex. But when Sir Alex came to Manchester United, he was obviously a young manager, had great success up in Scotland with Aberdeen. He broke up the Rangers Celtic. It's now Rangers Celtic and Aberdeen. He was desperate for success and desperate that I think the latter end of his career, Sir Alex would have probably been more like Ron Atkinson in terms of he's got his players, he's got a good team, he relaxed more than when in the first, I was with him for 2 years nearly. He had to win football matches. He had to get in the shop. Liverpool were a tremendous team in that era. Very difficult to catch, to overturn. And the problem at Manchester United was that every year went by. It's 25 years. It's 28 years. It's 30 years since Man United had won the league. There was pressure on managers, players all the time. And as soon as you're not at the top of the league after 10, it's going to be another year without the championship, etc. And he needed to break that, and eventually he did. And then obviously he went on a magnificent run. But Ron Atkinson, I mean, the lads who played under Ron, they'll tell you that it was so it was so good to play for. He played good football. You make you relaxed. I mean, there's thousands of stories regarding him. I always remember Alan Smith, who was our physio. Great physio was Alan. Nigel Worthington came in one morning fitness test, and Alan failed him, and he said he's not fit to play. Big Ron came in the dressing room, said, "How are you, Barney?" He said, "Well, Alan, what's in it?" "No, he's not fit. He's not fit." "What's wrong with him?" He feels it when he's knocking a ball in the channel. He says it opens his groin up and he feels pain. He says, "Simple. Just get the ball, Barney, and give it to John Sheridan. That's all you've got to do. Don't put it in channels, give it John Sheridan." Played him, we won the game, not a problem. That was Ron's style of management. He got the best out of players and got players wanting to play for him. But tactically and coaching-wise, neither manager, we would say, were, tactically on training grounds. Ron used to train. You didn't want to be on his team in the 8 games. You definitely didn't want to be in his team. And the team who were against him was so hyped up to beat him. I mean, I remember in the gymnasium at Wednesday when Nigel Pearson actually smashed Ron against the wall in a shoulder barge challenge. Ron hit the wall and he went down like hit the ground like a snake against the wall in a crumble of effort. And I'm thinking, what do? Do you go over and say, "You okay, boss?" The game continued. He got on his knees, shook his head. His hair was all over the place as it usually was, and he just got on with it. But he was great. He was a great manager to play for.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for that.
Next question. Dave, you must have got a question. Dave?
Did you ever meet Harry Catterick at all? I thought he was the best manager that Sheffield Wednesday ever had.
No, I didn't, to be fair. I might look that age, but I'm not.
It went on.
I only remember he was an ex-Wednesday manager, and obviously when I was growing up, he was the Everton manager who beat us in the '66. I mean, Everton had a great team in the '60s and '70s.
Yeah, he had a good coach with him as well, Tommy Edleston.
Yeah. Well, coaching and everything else is great to have up your sleeve, but your team is all about your players. Can they play? Can they handle a ball? Can they, can they take what you're wanting them to do onto the field? And once you get a team that stands how you want them to play, I mean, I dare to say, and I think majority are Wednesday fans, Sheffield United know exactly what they're doing. Yeah. And when I've watched Wednesday over the last 2 or 3 years, I don't think they knew what they were doing.
No. Do you think scouting is all a matter of opinions?
Well, football's all about opinions. Every Saturday afternoon, it's one man against either 30,000 or 5,000. They're all managers, and you'll get a respite until next Saturday if you've won, and people will go and pick the right team. But that's football. Football's about opinions, and to be a manager, if you want to be a manager, you've got to accept that when you lose, people's going to criticise your tactics, as you say, or your team selection. But scouting, and we call it recruiting today, is the most vital part of any football club. Whether you're Torquay United or Liverpool, your scouting recruitment is vital.
Well, I've worked for both clubs, both Sheffield clubs, and the players that I've recommended, they just haven't even looked at them sometimes.
Well, I mean, let's go back to when I was manager at Wednesday and the year before, or 6 months certainly before the end of that particular season, where you've got the aggro of Ken Bates takeover and black and blue balloons and all this scenario. It was, when you're going back, what was it like? It was horrific to manage at that time. But we were out on the road 2 or 3 nights a week, the staff, and Peter Eustace was our scout there. Up in Scotland, where we got Lee Bullen from, Steve McLean from, you know. And when you get those boys into your club in pre-season as a manager, it gives you excitement about Chrissy Marsden and 8 or 9 other players. And I felt then that we're now starting to build a team and build a squad of players. It wasn't the finished article by no means, but we brought to the club players that I believe. I'll tell you now, we to play for Sheffield Wednesday, and probably say it will be for Sheffield United. You've got to be able to go out on that pitch, and you can't put the crowd out of your mind. But you've got to be able to be focused to play on that pitch. And Lee Bullen in his first game, which was Colchester at home, we lost 3-0. There's 28,000 there. After the game, Lee Bullen said to me, he says, Chris, he says, I've played there against Celtic Rangers many a time. He says that kick-off time at 2 minutes to 2, at 3, he says, I wobbled. He says, I actually wobbled before the start of the game because of the crowd, the tension, the excitement, the ramping up of the crowd before the kick-off, right at the kick-off, and then the game starts. So when I was looking for players coming in that season, I was looking for experienced players that could handle. JP McGovern, being at Sheffield United, being at Sport Blackwell about. I needed players that's going to come in there. David Lucas in goals. Replacing Kevin Pressman was always going to be a difficult choice, and I had to get somebody. We'd had him on loan; he performed well, and I brought David Lucas in full time, and so on and so on. It's the most important person of any football club is who's doing the recruitment. And Sheffield United has got the best. Sheffield Wednesday, I'm sorry, I don't know who he is.
Right. Okay, John, you wanted to ask a question.
I forgot what it was now. I know there were a couple actually. Talking about Ron Atkinson, do you think that was one of the worst of the many mistakes that Dave Richards made, getting him back in the club to save us and then sacking him? Do you think that was a big mistake?
Well, I think Wednesday's good at that, aren't they? They've been good over the years. Derek Dooley, boxing, Christmas. Trevor. I think we're 7th, 10th, 8th, 9th in Premier League, and Trevor goes.
Not good enough. Ice cream van. I'll have a chocolate.
Don't worry, it can go off in a minute.
I'll never stop that speed.
Football clubs are driven by fans at the end of the day, and directors, chairman, owners, they like the pats on the back. And if they're not getting the pats on the back and they're going to get abuse, they don't see further than the nose, and they make decisions that on the day and for the next 2 weeks is a good decision in the fans' eyes. It soon turns sour again when whoever they bring in can't do anything with the players. This is a really, really important time for all football clubs now for obvious reasons. And they have got to get recruitment right, because the money is not going to be there to buy players, I wouldn't have thought. So, getting experienced people in positions that can know what they're doing is so vital now for a club, because it costs more money to hire and fire managers and players and turnover of players. It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Chris, Dave Jones once said to me, I want you to go out and find me the best player ever. He says, and I'm going to take the credit for it when you've found him. He says, take enough rubbish off 20,000 every week.
Yeah. Well, scouting or recruiting is I would say 90% of clubs now are doing it on laptops. They're doing it on statistics, on laptops. Liverpool certainly, it's been highlighted. They do a lot on statistics. I work very closely with Thomas Franks, the Brentford manager. I've been down to Brentford, and they're watching 60 games a weekend from around the world. They employ students, they train them up, and they analyse games from around the world, looking for players. That's the tool that they've done, and that's a modern tool today. For a scout, you could go and watch 10, 15 games and not see anybody. But then when you find one, I mean, I remember going to watch. I was being told about Grant Holt. I'll go back to Grant again. Grant Holt, I went to watch him play a Tuesday night down in somewhere like Long Eaton near Nottingham, and it was a cold, very frosty night. He was playing for Barra, and being told, go and watch this boy, he's a goal scorer. And what I saw was he was getting kicked all over the place, never retaliated. And every time the ball was in a wide area, he was in the penalty box on the move. And I bought him for £10,000, 5,000 down and 5,000 after so many games. And he was on I put him on £500 a week. And that night, that same night that I signed him, Dave Allen was opening a brand new restaurant in Ecclesall Road, which is now sold. And the directors were all there. And our finance director, Bob Grayson, who at one stage was my accountant, Bob Grayson said to me that night, he said, "Hey, this non-league boy we've got paid a lot of money for him, haven't we?" I says, "Bob, we've paid a lot of money." I says, "We've got strikers on £7,000 a week. Can't hit a barn door. We've paid 150, 300 grand for players here who can't play. And you're telling me that £500 and £10,000 expensive." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. But then Grant Holt proved him all wrong and went on to have a fantastic career. But that's what you've got to do. You've got to see something in somebody. David Pleat, spoke with David Pleat years ago. He said, don't go and watch a player 5 or 6 times. I says, "Why, David?" He says, "Because if you go on the 4th, 5th and 6th time, you might see things that you think, I don't like him. And then you don't take him. If you see something in a player that you can develop or that you can think can improve your team, go and get him. Don't waste time." And fair comment. Fair comment.
Right, John, you want a question again?
Well, no, there were one or two really. As you're talking, I mean, Pete Eustace was another one of my heroes in the 60s. He could walk on water, but you worked with him quite a lot. How did you get on with him? A good player doesn't always make a good manager or assistant manager. What do you feel about Pete Eustace?
Well, I mean, Peter did a good job at Sunderland with Alan Durbin. Then obviously Howard took him to Hillsborough. He took over for 3 months, but no, once again, there's right times and wrong times to take over. He went down to Orient, where, like I said, we had a good side. I think we finished 7th, which was one place out of the playoffs, or 8th, one place out of the playoffs, and then 4 to 5, 6 players were sold, because for obvious reasons the club needed money. Very difficult to replace, and then struggle at the start of the following season. So it's difficult as managers. And Peter was a good guy to have around the club, and I took him to Hartlepool for scouting reasons, Sheffield Wednesday for scout, and we got some good players. He knows a player, got great contacts. Quick one for you: Harry Redknapp, Southampton manager, rang him one day. And he said, "We've got a reserve game, got 3 or 4 players, Peter, who we're looking to loan out." Paul Sturrock was Wednesday manager. So Peter went in and said, "Harry's rang me." He said, "He's got 3 or 4 players that looking to loan out. You might remember his name, the big black striker that he got from Southampton. What was his name?"
Jones. Kenwyne Jones.
Kenwyne Jones. Yeah, Kenwyne Jones.
Kenwyne Jones, that's right. He says, "So I'll go down tomorrow. I'll go down and watch the game." And Paul had been at Southampton. He said, "Let me tell you something, Peter. Whatever you see, whatever you do not come back to me and recommend Kenwyne Jones. Do not, because I will not entertain Kenwyne Jones here." So anyhow, Peter goes down there, watches the game. Who's the best player on the pitch? Kenwyne Jones. So he goes back to the club. He says, "Listen," he said, "I'm telling you now, Paul, Kenwyne Jones would be a blinder to come here and play in here for 2 or 3 months," he said. "He's the man for that." I'm not effing having Kenwyne Jones. Yeah. Saturday comes, they play the game. I think Lee Peacock was up front. He got injured, as he usually did. Or one of the other striker gets injured. They're desperate for a striker. He goes and gets Ken Wynne-Jones. And Ken Wynne-Jones was a great little piece of the jigsaw at that time of the season to come in. I think he scored 6 or 7 goals, 2 at Donny, to get the team and bring it all together for that period of time, which then kicked on to get that promotion run at the end of the season. So, sometimes it's by luck, sometimes it's, by a little bit of skill. But Peter was a good scout, and he could find a player or two.
Right, Chris, we're coming to the end. We've got just over 2 minutes.
Right.
Can I ask a question? Who is the best player that you've played with, please?
The best player I played with? Well, I think we're talking Sheffield terms. You could throw John Sheridan, Nigel Pearson, David Hurst. Manchester United, Brian Robson, the captain, was a leader, a tremendous footballer and a great captain in the dressing room. I was fortunate to play with Paul McGrath, who was a fantastic footballer. He was like a Rolls Royce of an engine on a pitch. I've been fortunate to play with some great players. A boy who used to play for Sheffield United years ago, Kevin Arnott at Sunderland, was a wizard of a midfield player with a ball. I was fortunate to play with Frank Worthington and Leighton James in my career at Sunderland. A little boy called Stan Cummins was a fantastic. I've been fortunate that I played in some good teams for some great clubs, and got some great memories with these players.
Right, that's brilliant. So we're now down to just over a minute left. On behalf of everybody, Chris, can I really thank you for coming on? It's been fantastic.
Good.
So if ever you want to join us any other time to just
live in the flesh.
When the lockdown's down finished, I'll come over to you. Meet in the library, don't you?
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. Yes.
Bramall Lane.
No, it's a Crystal
Lane. Good. Do us a favour.
Library. The joke.
It's at Crystal Peaks and the Manor. So.
Yeah.
Once again, thanks to everybody, and thanks for observing it all. Brilliant. And we'll see you all again next Tuesday.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye now.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you, Paul the Biscuit.
You're welcome.